Hey guys, welcome back to Gatsu Gaming. So I'm here today to talk to you about Outlaw Rogue. Outlaw Rogue is probably one of the most exciting rogue specs and one of the most hyped up right now. And there's very good reason for it. Outlaw Rogue is incredibly strong right now in Mythic Plus, and it's looking to be one of the strongest specs in the game whenever the spec and the expansion launch. So let's take a quick look at Outlaw Rogue talents. So you'll see the talent tree here has not changed a whole lot. There's a few new additions and a couple things that disappeared. But we don't focus on what's gone away, we're going to focus on what's new. So first here in the 15 row, we have Weapon Master. This of course is round before. Sinister Strike has a 10% increased chance to strike an additional time. Isn't really affected by anything except for weapon speed and energy regen. You know, a pretty boring talent, but it is there if you want to use it. The other great passive here is Quick Draw. Half-cost uses of Pistol Shot granted by Sinister Strike now generate 1 additional combo point and deal 50% increased damage. Now, Quick Draw is probably the one that I picked the most while I was first leveling this character, and I only swapped to Ghostly Strike after I started looking around at some theory crafting and learned just how powerful Ghostly Strike was. Quick Draw, of course, will give you an extra combo point and does deal extra damage with those Quick Draw procs. So it is super useful if you're not comfortable adding Ghostly Strike to the rotation. Ghostly Strike is a 30 energy, of course, instant cast, because everything we do is melee is instant for the most part. 35-second cooldown, strikes the enemy, dealing moderate physical damage, and causing the target to take 10% increased damage from your abilities for 10 seconds. Essentially, Ghostly Strike just gives you a damage window in which you can do a bunch of extra damage. 10% may not seem like much, however, when you stack it up across a fight, a 10% increase is pretty substantial. So if you're comfortable adding this to the rotation, definitely give it a shot. You will not be sorry you did. Level 30 row here, this is our gap closing / movement row. We have Acrobatic Strikes, increases the range on all your melee attacks by 3 yards. Super useful if you're like me and you randomly get out of melee range and don't realize it for a second or two because you're a melee noob. In general, this also helps whenever there's a lot of mechanics on the ground that make it difficult to get to your target. Just because you can sometimes be right on the edge of them and hit the boss or the random mobs you're fighting without taking that damage. You know, where trying to be in melee range would get you killed. Then we have Retractable Hook. This reduces the cooldown on your grappling hook by 30 seconds. Grappling Hook is our baseline movement speed instead of Shadow Step. And honestly, Retractable Hook is probably what I would go with in most dungeons. Retractable Hook is just great. Having a 30-second cooldown on your movement speed, or your, movement ability rather than a minute is pretty impressive. Then we have Hit and Run. This increases your movement speed at all times by 15%. I use this while I'm leveling simply because the faster you move, the faster you can kill things, right? I mean, I think that's pretty good logic, honestly. Level 45 row, this is our combo point row. We have Vigor. This increases our maximum energy by 50 and your energy regeneration rate by 10%. Vigor is pretty much one of the default choices early on because it does make up for any lack of gear. And extra energy regen is super useful. Especially even at higher levels where you just need a little bit more damage. That extra energy buffer, so that you can do more Sinister Strikes in your Ghostly Strike window, is also pretty awesome. Deeper Stratagem, once you're very well geared, Deeper Stratagem may be the way to go, and probably will be. You can then have a max of 6 combo points, your finishing moves consume up to 6 combo points, and your finishing moves deal 5% increased damage. Whenever you have the opportunity to use this, anytime you're going to have a lot of haste, certain short fights, Deeper Stratagem is still really good for. But for the most part, Deeper Stratagem is used primarily whenever you have fairly good gear. Just because it is dependent on you having the proper amount of energy regen to actually get up to 6 combo points. Now lastly here we have March for Death. This is incredible anytime you have reliable adds, as you can basically just get a ton of extra combo points per fight. It marks the target, instantly generating 5 combo points. The cooldown resets if the target dies within a minute. March for Death is just nutty on AoE pulls. If there's ads that are going to live, for, longer than 20 seconds or so, March for Death just makes that you can go ahead and keep Blade Flurry up and just start spamming stuff and just hitting your finishers left and right. Super, super powerful when you have reliable ads to make use of its reset. Level 60 row, this is our survivability row. We have Iron Stomach. It increases the healing you receive from Crimson Vial, healing potions, and health stones by 30%. While leveling, this is what I go with, just because getting a little bit extra is never a bad idea. And, yeah, self-healing is definitely very important while you're leveling, because these mobs hit pretty hard out here. Cheat Death, if something would kill you, it'll instead take you to 7% of your max health, and for 3 seconds afterwards, you take 85% reduced damage, cannot trigger more often than once per 6 minutes. Cheat Death is your de facto raid talent here. It's very rare you will not take this in raid. Just being able to, eat that mechanic by accident, we'll say, is definitely preferable to simply falling over dead because you just, you ate the mechanic you shouldn't have eaten. This is great when you're learning a fight just because you'll be able to see more of the fight from your perspective. Then we have Elusiveness. Feint has received some minor changes to it, ones that make it not spammable anymore. Elusiveness will give your Feint the ability to also reduce all damage you take from non-area of effect attacks by 30% for 5 seconds. This is absolutely great whenever there's ads that are going to be focusing you, when there's, something going on where you're the only person that's taking the damage, like a fireball to the face that isn't actually like, an orb floating through the air, but just an actual spell cast. It's just nice to have that extra damage reduction. Most of the time you will be taking Cheat Death, but Elusiveness definitely has its uses as well. The 75 row here, we have Dirty Tricks. Cheap Shot, Gouge, and Sap no longer cost any energy. Super useful in raids and that whenever you can actually make use of them. Most of the time, though, you can't. This is also, I believe, pretty great for PvP, because why not have extra energy? But remember, I don't PvP, so I don't know what I'm talking about. Blinding Powder. Blinding Powder reduces the cooldown of Blind by 30 seconds and increases its range by 15 yards. Blinding Powder is definitely super useful when you have to reliably CC an ad. It'll just reduce that window where you don't have any CC on it. And Prey on the Weak is what I take 9 times out of 10 for myself. Enemies disabled by your Cheap Shot or Between the Eyes take 10% extra damage from all sources for 6 seconds. Super powerful if you have an ad that needs to be focused very hard and it can be stunned. This will help your group immensely in Mythic Plus. The level 90 row here, we have Loaded Dice. Activating Adrenaline Rush causes your next Roll the Bones to grant at least 2 matches. So you're guaranteed to get that during your Adrenaline Rush, so that hopefully you will get the most ideal setup of buffs from Roll the Bones. It does alleviate a little bit of the RNG with Roll the Bones, but most people would still prefer Slice and Dice. Alacrity, your finishing moves with a 20% chance per combo point to grant you 2% haste for 20 seconds. This stacks up to 5 times now as opposed to 10. Now, Alacrity is significantly stronger in live currently. It is nerfed pretty significantly here in BFA, but it is still a very solid talent. 10% haste is a lot of haste early on here, and is nothing to, just write off as not being strong enough. Slice and Dice will replace that Roll the Bones and give you a consistent 60% attack speed and 15% energy regeneration rate for a time determined by how many combo points you spend. Slice and Dice is a 100% the one you take if you're looking just for consistency. And if you're looking for also a little bit of simplicity and less RNG. I really like Slice and Dice. I honestly wish it wasn't in the same row as Alacrity. I very much enjoyed stacking them both during Legion, but it is okay to see them here. I understand what they're going for, at least. So, most likely you'll be taking Alacrity, but you can also take Slice and Dice if you prefer not to play Roll the Bones. Now, our final row here, we have 3 talents that are... One is old, the other 2 are brand new. So we have Dancing Steel. This increases the duration of your reworked Blade Flurry by 3 seconds, and its damage by 5%. Now, with Dancing Steel, with the changes to Blade Flurry, you can have Blade Flurry up 100% of the time, and it's going to deal 50% damage to everything around that primary target instead of just 45. What is absolutely hilarious about this is that because Blade Flurry no longer penalizes us in energy regeneration, this is actually a very, very powerful talent regardless of the situation. As long as you're going to have literally anything to cleave, this is super powerful. Now, the single target choice at this point is Blade Rush. Blade Rush is, think of it like, it's pretty much Fellblade for Havoc Demon Hunter, except it's a little different for our Outlaw Rogue. 20-yard range, instant, 45-second CD. Charge your target with your blades out, dealing physical damage to the target, and then about half the damage to all other nearby enemies. While Blade Flurry is active, damage to non-primary targets is increased by 100%. This ability also generates you 25 energy over 5 seconds. Now, Blade Rush with Blade Flurry active is going to hit everything for quite a bit of damage. This has a 45-second cooldown, and it gives you extra energy. There is almost nothing here that I don't love about this ability. Even the animation is good. Blade Rush will probably be what you go with 9 times out of 10, at least at the start. It's very, very powerful. Expect to play it a lot and get used to playing it. Now, alternatively, you can also run Killing Spree. Teleport to an enemy within 10 yards, attacking with both weapons for a total of about 10,000 physical damage at level 113, over 2 seconds. While Blade Flurry is active, it also hits all nearby enemies for 100% of the damage. Now, Killing Spree with Blade Flurry active is probably one of the hardest hitting abilities in the game. However, Killing Spree on a single target doesn't seem to do anywhere near as much. I'm not sure if that is an issue with Killing Spree mechanically, or if it's just that most of the time when I've used this, I just haven't seen the damage it's actually doing. Blade Rush has outperformed it significantly in damage, so it's kind of sad to see that, but Killing Spree is just absolutely crazy. If you want to go ahead and just delete a big AoE trash pack, Killing Spree will eat that whole trash pack on its own. It's pretty amazing. So moving on to the spellbook here, we have our primary DPS cooldown, Adrenaline Rush. This increases our energy regeneration rate by 60% and your attack speed by 20% for 20 seconds. Adrenaline Rush should be used as often as possible. You always want to try to use this on cooldown, and it just makes you just absolutely insanely fast. It is so much fun to play with Adrenaline Rush. Ambush is our primary ability we use out of stealth. It just hits for a solid amount of physical damage and gives us 2 combo points. Between the Eyes is our ranged stun. It has a 20-yard range and a 30-second cooldown. Does cost you 25 energy and 1 to 5 combo points. It's a finishing move that deals damage with your pistol and stuns the target, and critical strikes with this ability deal 4 times normal damage. This also has a stun duration based on the number of combo points you spend. This is incredibly powerful, as a 5-second stun is very rare right now. And with it doing 4 times normal damage, if you have anything that provides you extra crit, it is pretty scary how much damage you can hit for. There's also Azerite traits that actually affect Between the Eyes and get you more damage out of it. So definitely keep an eye out for those, they'll be very powerful. Blade Flurry has been reworked. It's now 15 energy to pop it. It has a 25-second recharge, maximum of 2 charges. This will cause your single target attacks to also strike all nearby enemies for 45% of normal damage for 12 seconds. Now, with that wonderful talent Dancing Steel, it increases its duration to 15 seconds and its damage to 50% of normal damage. Now, with that 25-second recharge time, you can actually have this up 100% of the time with Dancing Steel. So if there's going to be just adds constantly on a fight, you can run Blade Flurry pretty much the entire fight, or actually you can have it 100% active if you really want to with the cooldown, and it doesn't penalize your energy regeneration rate anymore. So Blade Flurry is now significantly more powerful than it used to be. Blade Rush is a talent, so we can skip over that one. Blind, 15-yard range, 2-minute CD. It'll disorient a target for 1 minute. Damage will break that effect. Now, Blind does not seem to have any sort of restriction as to what mobs you can disorient, making this a very, very powerful CC tool. Cheap Shot is one of the other abilities we can use out of stealth. It'll stun the target for 4 seconds, it does cost you 40 energy, and it will award you 2 combo points. Cheap Shot is absolutely great with Prey on the Weak because it does trigger that as well. Cloak of Shadows is that pesky ability that every caster hates to see a rogue use in PvP. Provides you a moment of magic immunity, instantly removing all harmful spell effects. The Cloak lingers, causing you to resist harmful spells for 5 seconds. Cloak is incredibly powerful for getting away from mechanics, saving yourself from a debuff you shouldn't have gotten, helping your healer out. It's just a super, super useful ability. Crimson Vial, you'll drink this potion that you randomly pop out of a pocket somewhere. I don't know where. We kind of have linked pockets from Legend of Zelda. And it will heal you for, it says, 42% of max health over 6 seconds. That, of course, is increased by Iron Stomach. But Crimson Vial is just super great. While you're leveling, this is incredibly powerful, which is why I take Iron Stomach while I'm leveling. Detection is a glyph from the class hall. This just lets you sometimes find certain creatures that are stealthed around you. I don't think it actually finds anything in dungeons, but it can sometimes find random critters, which is kind of hilarious. Dispatch is our primary combo point spender. This deals a pretty solid amount of damage, 1 to 5 combo points for it, 35 energy, scales up based on the amount of combo points you spend. As with every ability in Outlaw, you want to make sure you're doing every ability at 5 combo points, because it's just so important that you do with the class mechanics, which we'll get to shortly when we reach the passives. Distract will turn those enemies away from you. They'll look away when they're not in combat with you. It is usable while stealth, of course, which is great. And Distract is super useful when you have to sneak by things in Mythic Plus. Feint has been changed slightly. It now has a 15-second cooldown, up from no cooldown. And it has a 35 energy cost. This performs an evasive maneuver, reduces damage taken from area of effect attacks by 40% for 5 seconds. Ghostly Strike is a talent, so we can skip that for now. Gouge is it's an incapacitate that lasts for 4 seconds, damage interrupts it. You have to be in front of the target to use it, though, and it does award you 1 combo point. This is a pretty useful ability. You just have to be careful when you use it that you don't use it on a target that a Warlock has dotted up, as it will clear off any debuffs like that. So just be sure you are aware of that before you use Gouge. Grappling Hook is a 1-minute baseline cooldown, reduced by Retractable Hook. 40-yard range lets you get around super quick. Grappling Hook's amazing for getting to places you may or may not be able to, should be able to get to. This is great movement, and I love Grappling Hook. The effect's even really cool looking. Kick is our standard interrupt on a 15-second cooldown. No need to really get into that too much. Pick Lock, this will let you open up all those lock boxes that you and your friends find. There's a lot of money to be made in those lock boxes, so definitely be sure you're not just vendoring them for whatever reason. I think the last one I opened in Legion gave me like 65 gold. And then I got another lockbox out of it, and I just kept playing the rabbit hole of how many lockboxes are in this lockbox. It was pretty fun. Pickpocket will let us steal things from targets while we're stealth. You can find all kinds of things in people's pockets. It's pretty crazy what's there. If you're still playing Legion, you can definitely go around and still pick up those, I think they're Coins of Air, and get a bunch of gold out of it, so it's pretty awesome. Pistol Shot is our standard ranged attack. It awards 1 combo point, has a 40 energy cost. You pull out a concealed pistol and fire a quick shot at the enemy, dealing some physical damage and reducing their movement speed by 50% for 6 seconds. Now, primarily, you're only going to use this if you need a snare on something, or if you get a proc through Sinister Strike. Using this as a primary combo point generator is a really bad idea. Don't do that. It's not a good idea. Don't do it. Riposte grants a 100% chance to parry for 10 seconds, and each time you parry an attack, you will hit the target for about 500 physical damage. Cannot occur more often than once per 1 second. This will keep you alive against a raid boss. It really will. It's pretty impressive. Roll the Bones, this is our baseline sort of buff ability we have with combo points. You roll the Dice of Fate and you get some combat enhancements. You only ever want to roll this for 5. just because you want to make sure you're getting, the most out of it. There are some less desirable buffs, however, they have made it that you're significantly more likely to always get something that will definitely increase your damage from Roll to Bone. So it's significantly better, but it is still an RNG ability, which, if you're not a fan of, Slice and Dice is there for you. Sap will incapacitate any humanoid, beast, demon, and dragonkin that is not in combat. It will last for 1 minute. Shroud of Concealment, this will stealth your entire group on a 6-minute cooldown, as long as they stay within 30 yards of you. Great for sneaking past random trash packs you don't want to deal with, especially on fortified weeks, like the bears in Darkheart Thicket, for instance. Sometimes you want to skip that double bear pack. On the last page here, nearing it on the home stretch, we have Sinister Strike. You viciously strike the enemy, causing some physical damage. It has a 35% chance to hit an additional time, making your next pistol shot cost half and deal double damage. This will award you 1 combo point. If you crit with Sinister Strike, you'll typically get 2. Sprint increases your movement speed by 70% for 8 seconds. This is usable while stealthed. In combination with your grappling hook, you can get anywhere very quickly on a very, very short notice. Stealth just puts us in stealth so we can use some of our abilities, and so you can sneak around and pickpocket things. Tricks of the Trade is something you're going to want to make sure you have a very good macro for. You're going to need to misdirect your tank as often as possible, especially if there is a skittish week, because I honestly don't know how tanks are going to tank anything on a skittish week, if that affix is actually staying around. Tricks of the Trade, just make sure that all the threat you would generate goes to the targeted raid or party member. Incredible, when you need to pull some ads for a tank because they can't get to them, or because they're pulling too slow and you're a jerk. As people have seen in my videos, there's a lot of people that do that. It makes me so angry as a tank. But it's great whenever you can coordinate with a rogue or a hunter in your group to make sure you get what you need, without potentially grabbing anything else. Vanish should be used primarily as a DPS cooldown. It allows you to vanish from sight entering stealth while in combat, and then for the first 3 seconds after vanishing, damage and harmful effects received will not break stealth. Also breaks movement impairing effects. Vanish will just get you out of dodge if you need to, and it also gets you into stealth so you can deal some damage. Again, should primarily be used as a DPS cooldown. It's also great whenever you're wiping on a raid boss to save yourself that repair bill. If you're a Night Elf, you can also just use Shadow Meld, which is pretty great. Combat Potency, this increases your energy regeneration rate by 35%, and your offhand attacks have a 75% chance to generate 10 energy. The faster you attack, the more energy you get. The more energy you get, the more attacks that make combo points you can get. The more combo points you can get, the more damage you do. Well, that just seems like a great idea. So again, haste, very, very good for Outlaw Rogue. Fleet-footed just gives us a 15% movement speed increase at all times, and you take reduced fall damage. Mastery, Main Gosh, this makes your main hand attacks also have a 30% chance, based on your mastery rating, of course, to trigger an attack with your offhand that deals a moderate amount of physical damage as well. This gets better as you get more haste. However, it is typically not something you're going to want to stack too heavily. Restless Blades, this is the core of the spec. Finishing moves reduce the remaining cooldown of Adrenaline Rush, Between the Eyes, Sprint, Grappling Hook, Ghostly Strike, Blade Rush, and Vanish by 1 second per combo point spent. So again, the more energy regen you have, the more abilities you can use. The more abilities you can use, the more combo points you generate. The more combo points you generate, the quicker everything else comes off cooldown. Are you sensing the synergy with haste yet? Because it's pretty important. And lastly, we have Ruthlessness. Your finishing moves a 20% chance per combo point spent to grant you a combo point. So if you're always doing things at 5 combo points like you always should, you'll have a 100% chance to always get 1 combo point refunded, making it significantly easier to get to 5 combo points whenever you go and you get a crit and you get the extra combo point from Sinister Strike. Now that being said, Outlaw Rogue is in an amazing place right now. It is a super powerful spec. It is very straightforward and easy to understand. There's no odd complexities in there that make it, you know, just needlessly challenging to get into. It does have enough depth through talents that you can do quite a bit with it without fully understanding what you're really doing, which is pretty great. One of the biggest things about Outlaw Rogue right now is that it's very consistent damage. And consistent damage is something you definitely want to see. So thanks for checking in with us today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure you leave a like. If you didn't like it, hit that downvote button. If you haven't subbed already, sub to the channel so you can see when I go live. I've been streaming on YouTube a couple days a week now. And also be alerted whenever I come out there with new videos, which there's going to be a ton coming out very soon as we push here towards the release of BFA. So once again, guys, thank you so much for checking in, and I will see you next time.